removing other options and narrowing with intensity and focus your efforts on those goals, on those things that will provide the greatest changes in your life. You have to decide what you will do, who you become, and when you will accomplish it as you come out of this summit. Now, making the decision can be a tough thing, but it gets even tougher than that. The hard part is acting on that decision. And that's where commit comes in. Commit, it's the word that wreaks fear in most people. But you have to demonstrate commitment on your decision. And it's not a one-time, one day, one time, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but it's time after time, it's day after day, especially when no one is looking and when it seems unimaginably lonely and difficult. Now, for those that are lovers, it's kind of like not just falling in love, it's kind of like staying in love, right? It takes real work. And that's, of course, unless you're married to my wife and she's watching, so I need to say that it's easy to stay in love with her. So, Joette, I love you. But too many people miss out on opportunity. Because, and I love this quote from Edison, it's dressed in overalls and it looks like work. They're not willing to make the effort when it counts. Commitment will be tested time and time again, and it will come in so many different forms, and you have to be ready for these. The good news is, on the backside of deciding and on committing is success. That's how it flows. That's the order. There's no cheating it. Success will come in different forms, it will come in different times, but if you're relentless and you're consistent in doing the right activities over time, success will come. So, I want to share a quick example of a first-hand witness that I got to have of our Utah office. Many of you know we have an office in Utah, of how Decide, Commit, Succeed played out. Now, many of you know Arnaud Nakaha, one of the great members of our sales team. It sounds like 3 or 4 of you know Arnaud. So I'm going to take you back in time a little bit. It's February 2015. He's doing a Zoom call for a group of coaches. He's giving this impassioned metaphor of the power of vision and finishing, and that if you can visualize the finish line, how that visualization can give you the strength to finish. And he used the visual of a marathon finish line and what it must feel like. I'm sure the call was absolutely outstanding. The call ends. Then Sarah Try, one of our coaches, phones Arnaud and asks, Arnaud, have you ever run a marathon? Arnaud, no. Then how do you know? Right? So Arnaud is a competitive guy. The challenge is thrown down. He now has to run a marathon, but he doesn't want to do it alone. Who does he get to run with him? So you have to know this about Arnaud if you don't know him. He's 6'4", he's 185 pounds, he's long, lean-legged guy, he's muscled, he's a meant-to-run type of a guy from Burundi, Africa. He's a specimen, right? So, who does he ask? Doug Moss. 5'10", potato farmer from Blackfoot, Idaho. Okay? I knew Doug when he was 320 pounds. And that's a whole different success story. But I think in the back of their minds, Arnaud thought, hey, I can take Doug. And Doug was thinking, hey, it's no shame to lose to Arnaud, right? So they're the perfect odd couple. And just for fun then, Kim Carver, who'd run a couple of marathons, also decides to run this one. This would be his third. So, but here's where Decide, Commit, Succeed became real. On February 20th, they made a decision to run the June 13th Utah Valley Marathon, just 4 months away. They sat in Doug's office, they agreed that they would do it, they put it in writing, they paid their fees, and they pressed send. They had decided. And then they started to train. Remember, it's February in Utah, snow, rain, wind, and then finally sun. But the fun of the decision had worn off, but they ran, not necessarily fast, but they ran. And training wasn't easy. And in fact, it was hard, it was challenging. But the real test hadn't come yet. Along came Saturday, June 13th, the day of the Utah Valley Marathon. The first 7 miles, giggles and smiles, right? They've got this. Then the next 8 through 18 miles, it got tough. There was little fun and there's little enjoyable left about this decision that they made. But it was at this point where I got to become an eyewitness to something pretty cool. I knew that the guys were running that day and the race was going close by my home. So I got Maddie, my favorite youngest girl, she's watching too, on our tandem bike and said, okay, let's go cheer on these guys. So we rode up the canyon and after a little while, we found Doug and Arno. Kim had gone ahead. They're basically at mile 20. For those of you that know anything about running marathons, mile 20 is what they refer to as hitting the wall. It's not pretty, and they're not happy. And we decided that we'd ride along with them to give them whatever support we could from the comfort of our bikes, right? But the test was happening. And right at this point, the commitment was being tried. It was one foot after another, and they were fatigued, they were discouraged, they were watching a few other people throwing the towel around them. Even drinking made them sick. And they had moments of wanting to quit with every step. And I'm sure it was lonely despite the fact that we were right there beside them. But they mustered the strength and the determination to keep going. I knew right then that I was witnessing something very special. With 3 miles left, I was so inspired by these guys, what they were doing, that I decided that I would FaceTime Carl for that little bit of an extra pep talk. So I FaceTimed him. It just so happens that he is running up some mountain at the time. He answers the call, and he's this hot, sweaty mess, right? Is it okay to say that about your CEO? So anyway, he answers. I tell him what's happening. And Carl pulls out one of the most inspirational Carl fashion locker room talks that I've ever heard. He looks at them through the phone, he nods his head, and he says, "Finish that race." It kind of broke up in the middle there. I don't know quite what he said, but you know what I mean. But boom, right? Man, a few words. And it wasn't the bedside manner that I was really looking for, or the encouragement I thought he'd get, but it worked. In those final grueling miles, I saw grit, and I saw integrity. And I saw integrity in finishing what they'd started to do. And I witnessed a ferocious determination. The glory was gone, but the success was in the finishing. With a few miles left, Arnold ran ahead. Remember, he was a competitive guy who wanted to beat Doug. And I decided I'd stay with Doug. As Doug got closer to the finish line, he sees his family, and he just kind of whispers and says, "My family." Because one of the successes for Doug in running this marathon was to show his kids that their dad was capable of finishing and of doing hard things. Of following through on decisions that he made and on commitments that he made. And then Lisa, his wife, and his 3 kids ran with him up to the finishing line. These guys made a decision, they were tested, and they succeeded. And now Arnaud can talk with great credibility about the finish line, right? So listen to it. But what does that have to do with you guys? Everything. You get it. It's clearly a metaphor for your business. Every time I peel back the layers of a successful Team Beachbody business, I find that a coach has made a crystal clear decision. And then they went to work and they honored the commitment that they made to themselves. And there's typically an attitude of approaching this business like it is a marathon. They're in it for the long haul. They're just not in it while it's fun and it's a hobby. They talk about hitting the wall and having to push through. And to be successful, that's something that you're going to have to do. But everything starts with a decision. And then the decision that you make will determine where you go or where you don't go. And the level of the commitment will show not while you're here, but when you get home. And when you're tested in those crucible moments when you'll both be defined and refined. Those are the moments that will form the foundation of your success in your Beachbody business. My challenge to you as you start this summit is that you decide and you commit and then enjoy the benefits of your efforts, success. It's decide, commit, succeed. But here's the cool thing. The icing on the cake, if I dare say it, as we build this business, is who else gets to say this? That this is the impact that I'm making on my business. Every single one of you, when you registered today, got a shirt. And on that shirt, it says, #I'm Team Beachbody. And on that shirt, there's some words. And you probably haven't looked at those words, but those words came from you. This little I Am Team Beachbody hashtag started a few months ago when Christine Delgado started this movement by, oh stop it. When Christine Delgado started this movement by asking her team to share what being part of Team Beachbody meant to them. And they started to share that, and it became this very cool moment. And then it got even more cooler, if you will. Kim Carver saw it, and he said, hey, what I want to do is I want to have this spread, and more people need to share what being part of Team Beachbody means to them. And so he stayed up several nights, literally all night, combing Facebook and pulling out the hashtag I Am Team Beachbody and pulling picture after picture, and then he hung them in our Utah office, and he found every single flat space he could and posted your pictures on our wall. It was so cool. And as more came in, more of these pictures would be hung. So I'm out of the office, I'm kind of watching it from a distance. When I return home, seriously, there was practically no daylight in the office because it was covering everything. Outsiders would come into our office, and as they were looking at this, they start to read these stories, your stories, and these words about everyday people whose lives had changed. And they were just absolutely amazed. We compiled these books of hashtag I Am Team Beachbody, and we could fill even more of these books. But each one of these pages is a story about you. It's a story about the lives that you're impacting. When you think about what you're doing as you're growing this business, what you are doing is impacting people's lives. How many people get to say, this is what we get to do? We get to bring the very best out in people. You do, and I do, and we do it in French, and we do it in Spanish, and we do it in English, and we do it in English. And there are the people, these are the people we impact every day, and this is what we get to do. As we share the best of nutrition, and the best of fitness in the world, and the best of support. I seriously love what we do and what we stand for. I love that in some small way that I get to put my fingerprints on it, to be part of you, to help bring the best out in people. So as you're here, treat these next 3 days as the investment that they are. Summit is here to give you the tools that you need to create change and results in your life. So let's make this an incredible time, but one that is measured by the decisions that you make and the commitments that you have when you go home. Decide, commit, and succeed. So let's keep this thing going. Will you please help me welcome to the stage our CEO and co-founder, Carl Daikeler.